Well, in fact, the next Human Development Report will be dealing with addressing vulnerabilities and building resilience. And we try to put this into the context of two main frameworks. One is the life cycle capabilities, in which people's capabilities are built over the lifetime, and also the structural vulnerabilities, which are based on the social construction that creates exclusion and creates also discrimination. So in that context, we think that the main vulnerabilities that children face, for instance, when we look at children in developing countries, which are concentrate 92% of the children of the world, we've seen that 7 of every 100 children will not get to the age of 5 years. And we see that 50 of those children won't have their birth certificate registered. We have other kind of vulnerabilities. For instance, we know that 30 of those children will be stunted. We know that 25 of those children will be in poverty. So in that global context, we know that the children will have a lot of vulnerabilities that needed to be addressed, and that's part of the context that we are addressing this report. One of the main messages is that early interventions in terms of the life capabilities that we can build will create a strong foundation for capabilities throughout the life cycle. So we need to have a strong foundation, but also we need to continue the kind of investment throughout the entire life of the people. The main framework that we have for policies to address vulnerabilities and build resilience are based on the overarching framework that we are using of life capabilities and structural vulnerabilities. But in that context, one of the main policy implications of this report is that the timing of interventions is really critical. So that's why we think that earlier interventions for children are really important, and we need to make sure that we match the developmental needs with the budgetary allocations. And we have seen that many countries tend to allocate limited resources to the initial stages, where actually the need it tends to be greater. Again, we also highlight as a main policy implication that investment in life capabilities have to be not only early but sustained. So it's not enough just to invest early on. We need to promote that, but we also need to sustain this during many of the critical and sensitive periods where vulnerabilities could be concentrated, either when you made the transition from child to adolescent, or when you made the transition to go to the labor market, or even when you are retiring. Those investments have to be continued. We also know that money is not the only thing that is needed. For instance, in the example of children, we know that good parenting is critical for early childhood development. We also recognize that poorer households have limited resources, and one of these resources that they have also limited is time, because many times they have to look for many jobs in order to have a relatively decent income. So in that case, we promote universal access to early childhood development policies as something that will create equalizing conditions of opportunities for every children. And also we have an important role of social protection as something that will create a support for households and for individuals to handle crisis and to handle shocks that will prevent, for instance, these perversive coping mechanisms like taking children out of school or reducing the investment on health for children. So we think that this kind of social protection, universal provision of basic social services will be key in addressing the main vulnerabilities that we are facing in the particular case of children, but also will make a more resilient developmental process.